Thank you so much, everyone, for coming through, and welcome to our collab peer learning session, which we have given a title that it's a cross-regional learning and exchange session on transformational youth leadership and masculinities. My name is Nyasha Fanisa Sitole, and I work with the MenEngage Alliance Global Secretariat as the program officer responsible for youth leadership and engagement. And we are bringing this session to you together with the Youth Reference Group for MenEngage Alliance. This is a group of 15 young people who are from various countries, member countries, and from our regional networks who come together to support the work that we do on youth leadership and engagement in line with our 5-year strategic plan on strengthening youth leadership and participation across the MenEngage Alliance. And us at MenEngage Alliance, we're very much committed to championing, advancing, and supporting the youth leadership and participation of young people when it comes to issues around transforming masculinities and promoting gender equality. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. At this point, I would like to hand over to the moderator for the day, who is Irene Ogeta, program officer from Athena Network, which is one of our long-standing member organizations for MenEngage Alliance. So over to you, Irene, to steer the conversation for us.
Thank you very much, Nyasha, and welcome everybody. I'm so excited to be the moderator of the day. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the part of the world you're joining us from. My name is Irene Ogeta, and I'm very honored to be here today as the moderator of our cross-regional learning and exchange session on transformational youth leadership and masculinities. As Nyasha has mentioned, I work with Athena Network, where we are dedicated to advancing the recognition and leadership of young women in our responses to HIV, gender equality, and sexual and reproductive rights. Our mission at Athena is to ensure that young women's voices are not just heard, but are actually central to shaping policies and actions in these critical areas. In addition to my role at Athena, I am also part of the MenEngage Global Alliance board. And I am one of the young people who are actually sitting in the MenEngage Global Alliance board. So also a very proud member of the Youth Reference Group. And this dual perspective allows me to appreciate the critical intersectional of youth leadership and global advocacy and policy making. So maybe just to give you a brief introduction of MenEngage Global Alliance, Nyasha already did justice to this, and so I'm not going to spend so much time doing the same. So the MenEngage Global Alliance is a dynamic coalition dedicated to promoting gender equality and advancing the well-being of individuals and communities worldwide. So the Alliance brings together a diverse network of organizations, activists, and advocates who work closely and collectively to engage men and boys in challenging harmful gender norms and supporting gender justice. So MenEngage Global Alliance operates with the belief that achieving gender equality requires the active involvement of everybody, including men and boys. And so the Alliance focuses on fostering positive masculinity, promoting women's rights, and addressing intersecting issues such as HIV, violence, reproductive health. So by working collaboratively across sectors and regions, MenEngage Global Alliance aims to transform societal attitude, influence policy, and create inclusive environment where gender equality can thrive, actually. Today's collab session is unique. It's a very unique opportunity for us to explore and engage with key issues affecting youth and young people, as I call them, and marginalized communities in our field. So we will be diving into collaborative discussions, sharing innovative strategies, as well as brainstorming actionable solutions. Our goal today is to harness the collective wisdom and experience of all of us as participants and to drive meaningful progress in terms of our shared mission. So as we proceed, I encourage all of us to actively contribute. Please put down your insight. If you cannot get the mic, just use the chat box and share your insights and collaborate openly. Let us know your expertise, share your passion. And then this is also what is making us have our collective effort and impact and transformative processes. So thank you very much once again for being here. And let us make this session a very productive, inspiring experience for all of us who are here today. And so just a brief background of what this is. I'm sure all of you are asking yourselves, what is this cross-regional learning exchange? And what is it about? What is transformational youth leadership and masculinities? Don't worry yourself. We are here to unpack it before we dive into a conversation that is also going to help you understand it better. So in 2021, MenEngage Alliance developed a 5-year strategic plan for strengthening youth leadership and participation across MenEngage Alliance. So the strategy aims to support regional and country networks of the Alliance in their effort to promote youth engagement and leadership and to build systems and structures that facilitate this. As a follow-up to the implementation of the strategic plan, in 2023, Global Secretariat collaborated with regional networks and worked on revisualizing the youth reference group. So this was done as a way of ensuring young people's voices are actually included, involved in decision-making, coordinated and amplified youth voices, engagement and leadership across the Alliance. So the 15-member youth reference group, as Nyasha already mentioned, met in Kigali, Rwanda in December 2023 for their induction and to strategize on the implementation of the Youth Reference Group strategic plan. A work plan was actually developed from that meeting, and one of the activities listed was to conduct a mapping of young members and within the Alliance, actually. So it is against this background that the Youth Reference Groups is collaborating to host a cross-regional collab session on this transformative youth leadership and masculinity. So this is the session. And this is coming out of the youth reference group that was already formed and the convening that happened in Kigali and the representation of different regions that are part of the MenEngage Global Alliance. So this session today seeks to create a platform for all of us to learn from each other on good practices of youth engagements in the work and transforming masculinity. We also hope that we are going to feel encouraged to share our experiences on the impact of transformative youth leadership in promoting gender equality from a masculinity lens. And then collectively, we hope to unpack the connections between transformational youth leadership and gender equality. We are super, super excited to be having all of you join us. And we really hope that by the end of the day, we're going to achieve all this. And so without any further ado, we wish to welcome our two amazing co-chairs to just give us an opening remark and also let us know how they're feeling today. So Louis and Mewish, if you're ready, please, Louis, grab the mic. Let us know how you're feeling and then tell us briefly, if you were to be an animal, which animal would you like to be before you start with the opening remarks? Over to you, Louis, whenever you're ready.
Muchas gracias, Irene, por la bienvenida.
Thanks, Irene, for your warm welcome. For me, I'd like to say, and I'd like to tell everyone here, thank you for joining this session to share. As Irene mentioned, this space is going to be a very active one because we're not only going to listen to the panelists, but we are also going to create spaces for everyone to participate and share their opinions and reflections. So I only like to thank you everyone for being here, and I really hope this session is productive.
Thank you very much, Louis. We really appreciate, and we are so excited to be having our co-chair actually joining us today, and he's going to be one of the panelists who will be speaking to us later as we progress with our session. So I would also like to welcome our co-chair, Mewish, please, whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Irene, Neasha, and everyone, and all the YRT members who has contributed for the this collab session. And I, wish all of you that we have a successful session and we just achieve what we wanted to because we have worked a lot. And as Neasha and, Irene has told you guys that I feel, the year to, welcome you all for this collab session because in Kigali, we all 15 participants. You guys can, just wave your hands so most of the people can get to know who are the 15 members of YRG. Yeah. Yeah, feel that privilege. So we, gathered there and we just drafted that work plan. And I think this is the very first of our collab session. And I, welcome you all to this collab session. And definitely this will help you a lot to learn about, what we are going to do and about the gender equality movement as a young participant we are going to do. It's a very critical part of the ongoing journey, and it is opportunity to create platform where we can learn from each other's experiences, success, challenges, and engaging youth in vital work of transforming masculinities. So this is a chance to share the the impact and transformative youth leadership in having in our communities, and to collectively explore the deep connections between youth leadership and pursuit of the gender equality. So today our goal is not, just to exchange ideas, but to inspire the actions and build stronger and more inclusive, effective systems and structures to empower young people to lead. And we are here to ensure that youth engagement is not just mere, checkbox, but a driving force that shapes our policies, practices, and programs as well. So I once again want to express my deepest gratitude to the all youth reference group and MenEngage team who is working, and they are putting their tireless efforts, and all of you for your commitment and important work. So your dedication, energy, and passion are, the true engines of the change as well. So thank you once again, and looking forward to a very fruitful discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mawish. We really appreciate the warm welcome. And indeed, it's going to be a very participatory space. And it's also, let's guarantee all our participants and delegates that this is also a very safe space for all of us. And so a few housekeeping rules here and there, Nyasha already mentioned. So we wish to request that all of us, when we want to maybe raise a point, please let us use the raise hand button, and also let us not attack one another. None of us is wrong. All of us are right. So let us not find reasons to attack. We are here fighting backlash and anti-right movements. And so let us not project that here. And then we also request that we all adhere to our guideline in terms of sexual conduct. So let us not have any issues of, bullying or making other people feel like this is not a safe space for them. This is a space for all of us. We appreciate everybody. And then also, we retain the right for you we can remove anybody who tends to be using abusive language or sexual misconduct or anything that is not in aligned with the MenEngage guidelines and policies. And we really appreciate that we're going to carry and operate and work through this session respectfully and not using any sort of discriminatory languages, aggressive expressions, or any opinion that might be countering some people's beliefs in here. So let us respect intersectionality and diversity going forward. So thank you very much. Tom, also for projecting that on the screen. I believe all of us are able to see it and just read through as we continue with our session. So our session is going to be divided into sessions, into different segments. And the very first one is a creative exercise that we request all of us to participate in. And so we're going to have a Mentimeter sort of activity. I have literally posted the link on the chat box. So I will request all of us to click on the link and then respond to the questions from the Mentimeter. It's sort of a very short activity, but I think some people can also scan. I'm not sure if that is possible. Tom, from where you sit, I see the QR code on the screen. So yeah.
Yeah,
if
people can scan. Irene, just one. I will have to switch to the Menti screen. So if everyone scans this, if you can't scan it, just click that link in the chat. And we'll switch over now to the quiz.
Okay. So colleagues, let us click on the link. We've also reshared on the chat box. So we will hop onto the Mentimeter. Awesome, colleagues. We can do this. Which country has the highest number of women representatives in national parliaments? So excited for all the responses we're seeing. Thank you. Let's keep this going.
Shall we reveal the answer? You'd let me know, Irene, when you're ready.
Okay. I think in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over to you, Tom. Thank you. So you all know whether you got it or you missed it. Again, we said we're all right? It's not an examination. And so all of us are right in our thoughts. But the country is Rwanda. Thank you very much. On to our next question. According to UN Women, how many years do we need to achieve gender parity? Let us not Google. Please keep the responses coming. Thank you. For those of us joining in, we are doing a Mentimeter activity. So please click on the link. We've just repasted it there. And then it will take you to Mentimeter. We are on our question 2. Feel free to jump into the activity. According to UN Women, how many years do we need to achieve gender parity? Thank you. Keep them coming. And then in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we can reveal the answer. 286 is the answer. Again, you know whether you got it or you missed it. Thank you very much, Tom. How many years are left to implement and achieve the Sustainable Development Goals? We had this conversation the other day with my colleague, Nyasha.
And me.
Yes. Sorry. How many years do we have left to implement the SDGs? Let's keep going, colleagues. It will be great to see all of us, 111 of us participate. Thank you. Keep them coming. And in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over to you, Tom. Yeah, yay. Again, you know whether you got it. Thank you, Tom. So this is a true or false answer. And so in 92 years, only 5 women have ever won the Academy Award for Best Director. Is that true or is it false? In 92 years, only 5 women have ever won the Academy Award for Best Director. Keep the responses coming. Let's keep going. Thank you. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We stop. Over to you, Tom. It is false. So only one woman, Catherine Bigelow, was won Academy Award for Best Director. She won this in 2009 for The Heart Locker. that is. And then only 5 women have ever been nominated. In addition, only 1 woman has won the prize for Best Director at the Cannes Film Festival. That is Jane Campion in 1993 for the piano. Over to you, Tom. What does GTA stand for? What does GTA stand for? Is it gender training approaches? Is it gender term appraisals? Is it gender transformative approaches? Let's keep them coming, colleagues. Great participation. 2 more seconds. Let's keep it going. All right, Tom, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over to you. Gender transformative approaches. Not sure how many of us got it right, but that's it. Thank you very much, Tom. Whenever you're ready. What number is the SDG that focuses on gender equality? So we talk about gender equality every single time. We even spoke about it today here during the introduction of this session. What number is it? Is it the 1st? Is it the 3rd? Is it the 5th? Keep them coming, colleagues. In the next 2 seconds. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over to you, Tom. SDG 5. I believe majority of people got it. Thank you very much, Tom. Over to you again whenever you're ready. This is also a true or false answer. Gender equality is a concern for men. True or false? Is it a concern for men? Share your thoughts, colleagues. A very close tie. Okay, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Over to you, Tom. The answer is true. So I will just go through the answer. The achievement of gender equality implies changes for both men and women. So more equitable relationships will need to be based on a definition of the rights and responsibilities of women and men in all spheres of life, including the family, the workplace, and the society at large. It is therefore crucial not to overlook gender as an aspect of men's social identity. The fact is indeed often overlooked because the tendency is to consider male characteristics and attributes as the norm and those of women as the variation of the norm. You can click on that link right there for more oversights. Thank you very much, Tom, whenever you're ready. Thank you so much, colleagues. That has been really, really great. And we really appreciate you for participating in that activity right there. And so we are going to deep dive into the most exciting part after that Mentimeter activity, which is having a real conversation to discuss real matters and hear from, of course, real people. We're also young people who are working in the space and doing the job and interacting with all of us as their constituency. Of course, this is a conversation about young people and in a transformative way. And so we are going to start with Dipasa Pista. Dipasta, are you here?
Yes, I am here. Give me a minute.
Awesome. Welcome. Welcome. We're so excited to have you on board. And so Dipasa is from Nepal. And Dipasa is pursuing an MA in International Development in Gender and Global Justice at the University of Denver. As an intersectional feminist, Dipasa is passionate about gender justice, women's rights, and strengthening feminist leadership by creating safe spaces that enable women's capacity and growth. In 2020, she co-founded Political Literacy for Women, a nonprofit that aims to enhance Nepali women political literacy and create a collective of women's rights advocates. She also leads a social digital advocacy campaign called Not Anymore to stand in solidarity against online sexual harassment and to advocate for stronger laws in Nepal. As the organization alumnus, Dipasa is also an ambassador of Women Lead Nepal. Dipasa, let us have a conversation. What are some of the challenges and opportunities faced by young people in taking up leadership roles in the gender justice space? Over to you, Dipasa, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, and I'm so stunned to see so many participants today. So yeah, I think my work has mostly been with young people and then very much in gender equality and capacity building space. Currently, I'm also interning at Aspen with the Global Opportunity Youth Network, which also works with youths and their economic empowerment. So I think a few things when we talk about youth not being in the space, especially from where I come from, there's always this notion that youths do not have any knowledge. Youths are like, they're just young people. They don't have capacity. They're just like always bluffing around. And there's not much trust given from the people in senior levels to kind of entrust, sorry, confirm your speaking language. Okay. So that kind of situation is always there. But then when it comes to gender space as well, I think intersectionality plays a huge role. And then even within young people, right? There's women, there's young girls, young boys, and then we have queer folks. So in that sense, even with gender identity and sexual orientation, there's like a intersectionality level that kind of creates there. But then when you come from a country like Nepal, we also have ethnic groups, and then there's religions, right? Those kind of factors really put into play as to how many opportunities a person can receive or how they receive. So oftentimes when we only think about gender, we think about, oh, yes, like certain genders, right? But then we don't talk about how these people belong to different economic groups or their ethnic cultures. And that also has a lot of like layers that adds to it. For example, a woman from an elite community would have more opportunities than a young person, a young, maybe even a maid who comes from a maybe a marginalized community. So those layers are super important to understand on its own, but also I think especially for youths who are trying to come forward and do a lot of work, even in the government, right? This whole notion that youths are not capable, that youths don't have enough knowledge, and not respecting the perspective that youths bring forward, I think that's been a main challenge. And even if there are spaces where youths are involved, oftentimes it's taken for granted and not compensated enough, not just monetary compensation, but also in terms of like appreciating the actual effort that youth bring in and the power that they bring in together. That sort of like lack of space and respect, mutual respect from especially older folks, I think, is kind of like a challenge. But on the other hand, also there's an opportunity to do so much more, especially if you look at the example of what's happening in Bangladesh as well, right? It's the power of collective power of youth that came together to do something about it. And I think even here in this space, we are 111 people at the moment, and we are here to talk about not just about gender equality, but also the role of masculinity and how we can how we can build allyship between all our groups and then move together for gender equality, which is super, super important. So definitely a lot of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities. And I'm happy to engage more when we have more specific questions and like go in more depth. But that's just like a very upfront general answer that I have for this question.
Thank you very much, Dipasa. You've indeed touched on very, very critical issues, and thank you for raising concerns around how adults also feel when it comes to youth engagement. Most times, as you have mentioned, and I quote, perceived as inexperienced, and this is something that young people truly do struggle with in terms of gaining respect and credibility due to their perceived lack of experience. And this is compared to their, older counterparts. And then also you did touch something around resources. I mean, you're running an organization as a feminist and then looking at it and looking at how limited access to resources and tools as maybe can hinder the work that young people are doing. You also did mention about institutional barriers. You did mention something around ethnic groups, religion, and all these are standing as a block to enhancing young leadership, lacking adult support, resistance to change, and these are kind of institutional barriers. So these are really, really great points. And thank you for coming back with the opportunities that are there in terms of how can young people work together? And you did mention that thing that is really critical in terms of movement building onto youth activism. And so growing movements and which are led by young people, just to be able to keep pushing for the critical issues that matter for young people. But most important of it is having grassroots solidarity, which I think you're also doing with all the examples you've given in Nepal. Thank you very much. For that amazing contribution. So without any further ado, I would like to welcome our second speaker, who is going to be also bringing their perspective as an African young person as well. So we have Sina Shongwe. He's a seasoned youth advocate. He is a human rights and gender activist. He is based in the beautiful kingdom of Eswatini. He is also the executive director at United Youth for Sustainable Global Eswatini and MenEngage Africa Regional Youth Chairperson. So we have the mayor youth person with us, Sina. Please have a conversation with us. How can we create inclusive spaces that recognizes the diversity of young people for, sort of marginalized communities to participate in the gender justice space? How can we make this space so inclusive, recognizing intersectionality and diversity? Over to you, Sina, wherever you're ready.
Thank you, Irene. Maybe first will be to appreciate the platform that MenEngage has offered for us as young people to co-create and to also appreciate our efforts as young people that we put in advancing the gender justice movement. So maybe before I can go any further, I can just bring close on why exactly do we need to ensure inclusion and diversity in the gender justice in the gender transformative work. So maybe first will be to enshrine that every member of the community has to feel that they are welcomed and are valuable to the community regardless of how they look in terms of race, gender, age, class, or their sexual orientation. Also, a community where inclusion and diversity has been embraced, it is when their people can be involved in its space, places, activity, and events, regardless of their age, ability, and income or ethnic background. So I just made an example whereby where inclusion is ensured. I made an example of a community whereby LGBTQI members are being given the same service or priority just like all community members, and also the disabled youth are being given or are being offered equal or quality service just like all the other community members. So maybe also I'll try maybe to just look around the strategies that we can enforce to ensure diversity and inclusion in our gender justice or gender transformative work. So maybe we need to first support the efforts to promote healthy masculinities. For masculinities, we speak of why do we need to enhance or to promote healthy masculinities? First, they promote kindness. It's a space whereby men or young people can promote kindness. Also, they enhance their self-esteem and they build their self-confidence. Then also they become self-aware of gender equality or even around issues of gender-based violence. They become self-aware about those issues. Also, this is to ensure accountability. Also, we need to also support youth-led groups to promote and champion the gender justice movement. We already know that young people, they are in diverse space and they are in diverse settings. So supporting their movement will also give them the power to unite and to also accelerate the gender justice movement. Also, we need to strengthen the leadership skills of the boys and young men so that they can act as community promoters of healthy masculinities. Apart from bringing in men as the perpetrators or bringing in men as the drivers of the inequalities in the communities. We need to also bring men in another perspective. We need to bring men as the social change makers so that they can be able to gain trustworthiness within the space, so that they can be able to express themselves on how they feel and also to share their grievances. Number two, we need to promote dialogue and positive conversation and challenge predominant ideas of masculinities and foster the contribution of young men to narrative of gender justice. We need to also create safe spaces. In as much as there are spaces in the communities, they are not welcoming for the men, because those spaces in the communities continuously treat men as perpetrators. So as I was saying before, we need to bring in men as social change makers, as drivers of, as pianos of gender equality, and as champions of the gender justice movement. We need to also strengthen networks for advocacy and learning by connecting youth-led organizations and other movements on ground to promote healthy masculinities in Africa. We have seen this working through the MenEngage Africa network and within the MenEngage Global Alliance, whereby a multitude of organizations have come together to promote the gender transformative work, and we have seen this working in Africa. Then maybe why then do we need, what principles can we bring to ensure social inclusion? So first, we need to ensure respect. The pastor did mention the part whereby she youth deserve to be at effort. Also, young people deserve an opportunity to be recognized for their opportunity, for their efforts. They need to be recognized for their efforts. Young people should be able to claim their rights, and they must hold the right holders accountable. They must be able to hold the decision makers accountable of the work they do to transform masculinities in the globe and in the African continent. Youth should also form part of the project. They mustn't be segregated or into sections or outreach activities. They must form part of the decision making of the project, and they must also have positions of influence within the implementations of those projects. They must also be considered as decision makers, and they should take heed of young people's decision and take them into account. Lastly, resources. We all know that we lead youth-led movement, and resources are highly needed to execute and to implement the work that we are doing on the ground. So we need to allocate and offer meaningful and sustainable resources to support the youth work that is being implemented in the ground. And lastly, I will like, what are the positive benefits of social inclusion? Maybe inclusion offers communities the opportunity to benefit from a wide range of skills and experience from all community members. Speaking of the LGBTQI people, the disabled women, men, young boys, young women, they all have different skills and expertise. So when we ensure inclusion, it becomes easy to utilize the skills of each and every member within the community. Number two, it enhances a proper decision-making process where all opinions are viewed and are heard before taking any decision. It ensures a democratic platform for everyone to share their opinions without being judged or without being discriminated. Just like women before, they were discriminated because of their gender. They were not able to participate in key decision-making processes because of their gender. But today, through the advocacy that has been implemented, we have seen women taking position of power, and we have seen women participating in decision-making. So lastly, it enhances social responsibility for all community members. It gives us the opportunity to feel that we are part of the community. It gives us the power to become what we want to become. So lastly, I've just inserted this link where you can also get to know more about how we can ensure collective efforts in achieving gender justice. There is a website for MenEngage Global where you can just learn more about the youth work that is being done. And there's also this GPV Learning Network. You can also get to know how to strengthen networks, and also how to deal with oppositions and transformation of masculinities. Colleagues, I think this is the end of my slides. Thank you very much. Over to you, Irene.
Thank you very much, Linda. That's very, very, very deep and really comprehensive. And thank you for first highlighting the importance of us identifying the existing barriers that are stopping the collaboration, or rather the visibility of young leaders, or rather young youth leadership. And then you've also touched on very important issue on when it comes to fostering inclusion, and you didn't really share very beautiful and amazing strategies on how we can do this. And you also believe you've challenged us on how we should be viewing the engagement of men when it comes to work on social justice. And you did provide some very amazing strategies on how we should be doing this. And thank you very much. We should support the efforts of the youth group, and then we should promote dialogues, we should create safe spaces, we should strengthen networks for advocacy. This is indeed very, very powerful. And one thing that I also took from your conversation is the importance to amplify voices, the need for us to keep providing platforms for expressions, for people to be as authentic as possible, and for us to be able to continue having these conversations boldly. So I no longer use the term safe spaces. I call them bold spaces where people can be themselves, where people can articulate issues as they are. And you also did touch on something really, really important when it comes to creating the environment. I mean, a very great environment, but also being very, very intentional about looking at the geographical bit of it, cultural aspects, economic aspects, which you also broke down very well. And thank you very much also for bringing the issue around diverse representation, partnership leadership, and most importantly, sharing with us how it is important to capacitate, rather continue creating spaces for young people to be capacity built, or rather, if for lack of a better word. Thank you very much, Sina. And we believe that we are still going to stay for questions. Yeah, so I would also like to go through the Chatterbeaks wonderful session. Just looking at please, if you have a question, you can also feel free to post the question on the chat box. My colleague Nyasha, Tom, and the Global Secretariats will really be helpful when it comes to tracking those questions, and we hope that we get time to respond to your question. So if it's a question directed to a specific panelist, please shoot it on the chat box, and they will be able to actually respond to that particular question. Allow me to welcome our next speaker, colleagues. Our next speaker is going to be speaking in Spanish. The good thing is, if you go on your settings, there is the space allocated more. Please click on it and click on the interpretation, and then choose the language that is you want, I mean, your first language. So if your first language is English and a speaker is actually presenting in Spanish, there will be interpretation, so you'll get to follow the conversation. So please go to more on your Zoom and then click on interpretation, so you can be able to follow up the conversation even when presenters are actually presenting in a different language. I'm excited to welcome our co-chair, Louis and Rick Martin. So Louis is originally from the Mayan community of Chunhuhuba. Yeah, that's very difficult. Louis, you're going to help me learn how to pronounce that. Quintana Roo, it's in Mexico. He's 26 years old, and he is a social anthropologist. He works mainly on human rights issues, international agenda, and sexual and reproductive rights from a perspective of non-hegemonic masculinities. He is currently a member of the National MenEngage Network Mexico. He is also part of the Youth Reference Group and our amazing co-chair for that matter at the Global Alliance, representing the Latin American MenEngage Network. Louis, whenever you're ready, please. what are some of the unique novel interventions that you have come across or have led that have successfully challenged traditional notions of masculinity and contributed to transforming masculinities and promoting gender equality? If I may repeat, what are some of the unique novel interventions that you have come across or have led that have actually successfully challenged traditional notions of masculinity and contributed to transforming masculinities and promoting gender equality? Over to you, Louis, whenever you're ready.
Muchas gracias, Irene.
Thank you very much, Irene.
Pronunciaste muy bien el nombre, Chonjuju.
You pronounce my name, the name very well. It's a small community in Mexico.
Pues, acerca de la pregunta,
and about your question, and had the opportunity.
Perdón.
I'm sorry.
He tenido la oportunidad de
I've had the
conocer,
opportunity
varias,
to
intervenciones,
visit
varios procesos,
and to
a lo
to
largo de este
get to
caminar
know
de
and become
trabajo
familiar
en
with
torno a
different
las
interventions
masculinidades no
uh,
hegemónicas,
regarding
masculinidades
non-hegemonic
transformacionales.
masculinities and transformational masculinities. And it has been an enriching experience
de las diferentes personas que
to see the different perspective of the different people that work on masculinities here in Mexico and in different regions of Latin America. And I would like to share with you some of the interventions that I consider relevant. I didn't want to put up a presentation because we have a very short time, but I would like to comment on these interventions that I've seen.
Por ejemplo, aquí en
For
México,
example,
en
here
la
in
Red
Mexico,
Nacional de Cómplices por la Igualdad,
in the
de
National
MenEngage México,
Red de Cómplices por la
pues,
Igualdad
se trabajó en una
and
campaña
MenEngage Mexico
como
worked
paternidades,
together on a
acerca de
campaign
paternidades y cuidado, ¿no?
about
Esta campaña fue una
the
campaña,
different activities of
que
care.
se hizo digital para
And
poder
this was a
mostrar,
digital campaign
cómo,
that
bueno, la
showcased
diversidad de paternidades y
the
cómo pueden,
diversity of
estas paternidades, cómo se
fatherhood
involucran en el
and
cuidado de sus
how
hijas e
can
hijos, ¿no?
men engage
Yo lo considero
in
realmente importante
care
porque toca
activities in the
principalmente a esos
household.
varones que ya están en
And this is very
en
important because
ese
it
periodo
talks about
de crianza, de
men
cuidado
that
de sus
are already
hijas
engaged
e
in
hijos, ¿no?
raising
Entonces, particularmente esta
children.
campaña lo considero muy
And this
importante.
campaign has been particularly
Yo he
relevant.
invitado quizás a los
I
miembros de la red
invited
en
members
México que se
from the
repliquen para
network
que
in
podamos
Mexico
seguir visibilizando este tema
so
de
that
la
we could
importancia del
continue
cuidado y el
visualizing
involucramiento
these
principalmente de los hombres en
activities
el cuidado y la
and
crianza
seeing
de
how
los hijos.
men can keep on engaging in care
También
activities in the
quisiera
household.
compartir
I would also like to
una
share
experiencia en la
an
que formé parte.
experience
Esta experiencia fue a
that
nivel
I
regional.
participated in.
Casi
This was a regional
saliendo,
experience.
bueno, fue en 2021.
It
Entonces
was
todavía
in
seguíamos en pandemia.
2021. We were still
Esta campaña fue una campaña
in the
digital
pandemic and the lockdowns.
que
This
se
was
llamó Yo soy
also a
más que un
digital
molde.
campaign
Y esta campaña tenía como
that
principal
sought
involucrar
to
a las juventudes. Justamente esta campaña
engage
va dirigida a personas
youth.
jóvenes y adolescentes
Actually, it is
en el
targeted to
ejercicio de una sexualidad
teenagers and
más
kids
sana
in
y libre
the
de
exercise
prejuicios machistas,
of
¿no?
a
Iba
sexuality
dirigida
that
hacia
is
las
free
juventudes,
of
pero
prejudice.
específicamente a los varones jóvenes.
And it
Entonces,
was
fue una
targeted
campaña bastante
specifically
interesante
to
que
young
desarrollamos
boys.
junto con
This
un
was a
grupo
very
de
interesting campaign
jóvenes
that we
de
developed
Latinoamérica
with
y
a group of young
nosotros
boys from Latin America,
trabajamos en
and
los
we
mensajes
worked
clave de cómo
in
debía
the key
ser, qué
messages,
mensajes se querían dar,
how
cómo
they
hablar sobre
were to be
sexualidad
delivered,
de
what
una manera más
messages we
libre,
wanted to
más
convey, how to
sana
talk
y
about
para
sexuality,
tratar de involucrar principalmente a los
to
varones,
try
¿no?
to engage
Entonces,
boys
esta campaña
specifically.
se hizo en el
This
2021,
campaign was
se
held in
lanzó a
2021.
principios de 2021
It was launched
y
at the
con ayuda
beginning
de una
of the year
agencia
with the
desarrollamos
help
la campaña.
of
Ojalá
an
pronto
agency that helped
podrían
us
compartir un
develop the
poco
campaign.
el link
I can share with you a link to the launch video of this campaign. Right now, this campaign is dormant, and it is one of my responsibilities as a member of the youth reference group to relaunch it, to share it, because it is very important. Because we not only developed the campaign, we also created different material to discuss sexuality free of prejudices. For example, one of my favorite materials is a book that we called The New Kama Sutra. I don't remember the exact name, but it's an asset that we generated to think about other ways to live sexuality in a way that is free and healthy. And finally, I would like to share a personal experience here in Mexico, in the community. I was raised in a community and a group, sorry, an activism group, and I worked with them for a long time, and it has in a way been an experience that was very enlightening and innovative in my community. And this group not only works with boys, it now works with girls as well. It holds workshops, reflection workshops, and they implement camp methodology. With the help from other organizations, we hold camps where we meet with boys and girls to generate spaces for reflection. And there we discuss these topics and the importance, for example, to have a life free of violence. We talk about prejudices. We talk about gender roles and how we can transform gender roles to lead a more equal life in a way. Right now, recently, we have started working. One of the questions was, what are we doing right now? And I would like to share with you, to end my presentation, that along with some organizations from this region, we have a network and we are building a training track for community facilitators, and it is targeted at young people from rural areas so that they can learn more about transformational masculinities. I think that this is very important and that we need to work with grassroots communities. And that's what we are doing right now. We are thinking about how we're going to address this process, how we are going to develop something that is relevant for our students. For people in Mexico, we talk with, I've seen a lot of people from MenEngage. I say hello to all of you. And if you would like to join us in our initiatives, you are welcome.
I'd like to sum up with a reflection that we did within the framework of the International Youth Day. It's important to give leadership space to the youth, but this is not enough. It's not just enough to provide leadership opportunities and say, okay, you coordinate this. Now it's your turn. Of course, this is important, but it's not enough. in my experience, if that leadership or that moment of providing leadership opportunities doesn't go along with a supporting process where the older generations provide comfort and support to the youth, companionship process from the elders to the youth, then just providing leadership opportunities is not just enough. There should be a real commitment to support that leadership in the youth, so that way the work done by the youth renders great results. We need to support them along the way in order to achieve the desired outcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Louis. That was indeed very comprehensive, and thank you so much for sharing your experience. And this to a brief overview and highlights. Thank you for sharing about the campaign. And something that really caught my attention is when you shared your regional experience, what you did in 2021, having during the lockdown, the digital campaign that has really been great and was particularly targeting teenagers and boys, but I've also gone through you ensure that you're very intentional about it. You ensure you're very intentional about how you disseminate information to the teenagers and to the boys, because we've been receiving backlash when you're pushing for the integration of CSCs in our educational systems, and parents are like, you want to teach our kids sex? But again, we'll talk about packaging information. How do we package age-appropriate information all the time when you talk matters comprehensive sexuality education? And thank you so much. And also thank you for sharing your experience when it comes to the camp and the fact that you've been able to integrate boys and girls to just have open conversations and generate spaces that are safe and bold for them to have open conversations on transforming gender roles and live equal lives. Thank you very much. And indeed, I did also like the issue on the framework on international youth, the one that you spoke about, and how you've also articulated the importance of not being satisfied by the provision of leadership spaces for youth, but most importantly, going deep into them and also analyzing how important it is to have ongoing support, have commitment. Adults have commitments in terms of supporting young people, mentorship programs, providing continuous guidance, feedback, encouragement, also leadership opportunities being accompanied by training in terms of critical skills and all this. But above all, you did turn something on how do we sustain this leadership in terms of infrastructure, in terms of inclusivity and representation, in terms of diverse perspective, in terms of infrastructures? When you look at technologies advancing, how do we also ensure resources are there? Funding is there to sustain youth leadership. Grants are there to sustain leadership, addressing systematic barriers, again, empowerment and agency, autonomy, which is the most important thing when it comes to decision making within at institutional levels. So most organizations will actually just have young people in leadership spaces as a formality, but not really giving them the power and agency to realize their needs and to articulate their issues. Thank you so much, Louis, for bringing that to our attention. And once again, for reminding us to hold adults within our respective institutions accountable for us to ensure that we are there as fundamental components and not just as formalities. Thank you very much. I would like to welcome our next speaker, Pooja Shweta. Please forgive me for butchering your name. So Pooja is the Vice President of Hami Davai. Hami Davai works for engaging men and boys to end gender-based violence, and is also a member of MenEngage Global Alliance. Pooja is also a GESI specialist and doing her PhD in gender and development. She has long years of working in the field of GESI and BCC. Over to you, Pooja, whenever you're ready. So how can you share the power we talk about sharing leadership spaces, we talk about shared learning spaces. So please talk to us about how do you think we can share the power with young people to take on leadership roles within the MenEngage Alliance and in the broader gender justice movement. So we are not only looking at MenEngage Global Alliance, but you can also translate your response to how about your region? How is the situation? And then the bigger gender justice movement, what can we do? How can we ensure shared leadership spaces? Because most times we talk about power dynamics. What is this about? Please unpack this for us, Pooja, whenever you're ready. And forgive me for butchering your second name. We can't hear you. I'm not sure if it's only my side. Maybe you're on mute. Can the rest of you hear? Please give me a thumbs up if you can hear.
Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now. Yes.
Okay, so that's a defect of my microphone.
You're welcome.
So yes, my name is Pooja Shrestha. It's Shrestha. So my organization is Hamida Zubai. So it works for engaging men and boys for gender equality. Hamida Zubai means Nepali brothers. So yes, yes, and while talking about leadership or empowering young people within the MenEngage Alliance and the broader movement for gender justice, means more than just symbols, having a culture
sorry, we
whereby
lost you for
we
some
value.
seconds. If you could come up again, we lost you for some seconds. Please just start over again. Sorry.
Okay, so yes, I was talking about how can we empower young people within MenEngage Alliance. So it's not about just gender justice, or it's about sitting in the table or engaging young people. More than sitting in a table, it's also about having a culture whereby there is a value attached to young people's leadership. So it also means like shifting how we think about leadership itself, So traditional models of power often place experienced individuals at the top. So with younger voices are learning or who are following, leadership today is about collaboration and inclusion. So we truly going to share power with young people. Then we need to create spaces where their ideas and experience drive the agenda. So, so what I think is like they become not just participants, but they should be engaged as a real decision makers, visionaries, change makers, or change making leaders. Um, And how can we do this? Is one way to do this is like through investing more on mentorship, but not in like old-fashioned ways. I mean, like one-way transfer of knowledge, not in that sense, old-fashioned sense, but mentorship has to be very, reciprocal. As more experienced leaders, we can help guide and share our knowledge, but we must also be open to learning from young people. They bring new ways of thinking, new approaches, and different life experience that could push the movement forward. And in many ways, we don't even imagine, for example, Bangladesh case. So another critical step would be like genuinely start dismantling the structure of the systems that are hierarchical, that minimize young people's influence, space for leading initiatives, co-creation of projects, and say like decision making is needed by young people. This could mean something like setting up youth-led councils within MenEngage Alliance that really have decision-making power, making sure both steering committees and key decision-making tables involve young leaders. more broadly, when it comes to the trusting, trust, at the end of the day, trust in young people to lead will mean standing back at times to allow them to space to take risks. So, to try new strategies and sometimes even to fail without being penalized for it. It is being willing to share our platforms that can be on global stages, in policy discussions or in community spaces, so that young voices are heard loud and clear. This is not just symbolic, it is a real power sharing. We also have to invest in their development, making sure that they are prepared with the resources, training, support that will allow them to succeed as leaders. So this is not about shaping them to fit the existing mold of leadership, but giving them the tools to change and, like reshape what leadership looks like in the gender justice movement. Um, we can't expect young people to take the lead if we don't bring them into the practice opportunities. So it's not. So I think it is also important to reflect that youth are not an undifferentiated group. Today's youth, embraces diversity across gender, race, culture, sexualities, and geographic as well. So therefore, in saying sharing power, we must be aware of multiple barriers that young people face and be sure we are creating inclusive, I'll point out, inclusive space that really work for all young people, but in particular for those from diverse and often marginalized communities. Mm, While talking about power sharing with young people asks for, this fundamentally reimagine our understanding of leadership, to reimagine power and create structures that put inclusion and co-creation first, where young people hold real influence and are invested in for the long term. Then only we can build a sustainable gender justice movement. Mm, yes, and these young people are not just the futures, but the cadre leading, powerfully transforming community. So it really reflects all generations. So I think yes, and these are my general responses for your questions. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Buddha, for those amazing, amazing insights. So during the Mayor SRHR Symposium, that was one of the things that really came up in terms of when we were co-hosting the youth engagement session with YieldUp and another organization. It's one conversation that really stood out in terms of how do you ethically engage young people? What is partnership? How does this even look like? And what does this even stand for? And some of the beautiful reflections that you just gave also did come out. And I'm looking particularly at the benefits you've just stated, like enhancing representation. So ensuring that youth perspective and needs of young people are actually represented in the work that we do. It's included and it's reflecting in the documents that are also guiding our institutions. So it's not just by word of mouth, but really having guidelines and strong policies that are actually backing up the fact that young people should be engaged in the work. And you also did touch something on increased innovation. Young people are bringing brilliant and fresh ideas and innovative ideas to address, the gender equality challenges that we keep talking about. And so the more we give them support, the more they are appreciated, and the more we are supported, it becomes a plus. And strengthened advocacy, sustainable impacts, looking at all these things. So engaging young people in the work and in the effort that we are doing and having them be incorporated fully in the work that the adults are already doing is also really amazing in terms of greater visibility and amplifying messages, leading greater influence in policy and community level responses. Because again, all this conversation starts from the global space, but it trickles down to the grassroots. So it's supposed to be the other way. We take conversations from grassroots and push them to the global, but still the same. When policies and policy conversations around reviewing these policies happen at a global level, these policies are actually actions in countries, and in countries, that's basically the grassroots level where all of us actually do work. And something you also did touch, very important, around co-creation of projects, providing access and support, invest in capacity building. That is something that is also strongly coming out of this conversation. Embed youth in leadership roles, not just have them, but have defined roles that are also reflecting in the organizational and institutional strategies. Promote genuine participation, promote genuine partnership by engaging young people meaningfully in meaningful consultation, not just bringing young people. I mean, we are having this conversation and it's adult-led, but so we just want to throw a young person here for the sake of it to appear like we're throwing young people here, but engage them in planning, evaluation processes, and ensure that from the inception of these conversations, projects, and anything that we are implementing, young people are involved. And I love the bit you also did mention about normalizing youth leadership. Let's normalize it. It's not something new. I mean, it has to be normalized at the institutional level to promote the visibility, respect, and engagement. And most importantly, is let us also address power dynamics in our organizations and within. And all this, we also will ensure that we address matters of accountability. Oswaldo and myself are very passionate about accountability, and so is the entire MenEngage Global Alliance, because we do have accountability framework conversation that will be also coming in the near future, and we believe that all of you will be engaged and will be a part of it. So let's continue to reimagine power and create inclusive spaces, as Pooja has mentioned. I'm excited to invite our next panelist, who is Ekanem Itoro. Ekanem, whenever you're ready. So Ekanem is a board member, Initiative for Gender Equality and Sexual Reproductive Health. Ekanem, talk to us about, let's talk about mentorship. In what ways do you believe mentorship can actually help young people and young leaders navigate? What does it look like, and what sort of support will this even look like, and how will this mentorship help us young people to navigate the challenges that we are already facing in promoting gender equality? Over to you, Ekanem, whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you very much. So I am Ekanem Itoro Ifyong, and I'm based here in Nigeria. So basically, I would just want to start with saying that mentorship can be a very powerful tool in helping young leaders navigate, complexities of promoting gender equality in several ways. And I'd like to start with, basically starting the point around breaking gender stereotyping. And, when you have mentors as role models, mentors, especially male allies.
Okay, Ekanem, you're breaking. I'm not certain if it's on my end only, but you're somehow.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. So I would want to start a point around breaking gender stereotypes. So mentors as role models, when you have mentors, especially male allies, this can, model behaviors that challenge traditional norms, showing young leaders how to, confront stereotypes effectively. In terms of even guidance in masculinity, male mentors can also, guide young male leaders in understanding positive masculinity, which is quite rare today amongst us as activists, and how they can actually contribute to equality without reinforcing patriarchal norms. And I would also want to talk around building emotional intelligence and resilience. Mentorship also can help young leaders, both male and female, manage their emotional demands for advocating for gender equality. And this is particularly very important as gender advocacy often involves, dealing with deeply ingrained beliefs and resistance. Over time, we've talked about support through, setbacks, people, young leaders who are facing setbacks. And, mentors can actually provide this emotional support. helping young leaders remain resilient in the face of pushbacks or even a slow progress. Most of the time, this affects the mental health, even, this would also, push back the efforts of young leaders in actually advocating for gender equity and gender equality. I would also want to talk about in the aspect of strategic advocacy and communication. Mentors with experience in gender advocacy can actually, mentor or teach young leaders how to frame their messages in ways that resonate in different audiences, whether they are policymakers, whether they are communities, or whether they are media. As context changes, messages changes, and young leaders, youth leaders are meant to be there to actually provide that mentorship to youth. Also, I also want to talk about intersectionality awareness. Mentors can actually help young leaders understand the importance of addressing gender issues through an intersectional lens, considering how factors like race, class, and sexuality intersect with gender. We know oftentimes it is very, very important that when we are advocating for gender equality, we need to actually leverage networks and alliances. And mentorship actually opens a door to networks of allies, including other gender equality advocates, policymakers, organizations that can provide support and resources. And in building coalitions, mentors can also guide young leaders in forming strategic partnerships, particularly with men and boys, to create more inclusive and widespread of gender equality movement. And in terms of policy and systemic change, mentors can also provide young leaders to understand the complexities of working within the systems and institutions that may be resistant to, gender equality initiatives. And this includes advice on influencing policy and, navigating bureaucracy. And I mean, you may always agree with me, it can be very, very overwhelming when you're working around policy advocacy for gender equality because of the whole systemic issues that are already affecting it. Also, in terms of, I'll also say that experienced mentors can also help young leaders amplify their voices in decision-making spaces where they may face age or gender-related biases. Not everybody has a seat on the table, but oftentimes, most of us have the seat on the table, and it is in our own jurisdiction and in our own power to ensure that we are able to hear from our mentees and hear from the young ones and gather the experiences which we can actually share in high policy spaces and high-level meetings to ensure that their voices are actually included in these policies. I also want to talk about encouraging accountability amongst men. Male mentors in particular can play a crucial role in actually holding men accountable for their actions and attitudes towards gender equality, fostering a culture of accountability and responsibility. And, through mentorship, young male leaders can learn how to lead by example, promoting gender equitable behavior in their personal and professional lives. And mentorship is not just about passing down knowledge, but it's also about learning the innovative ideas and fresh perspectives from young leaders. It's a two-way vice versa. It's not about you just letting your mentees know what you need them to know, but it's also about hearing them out and learning from them. And especially in challenging traditional roles. Also, it is also very important that we actually encourage a dialogue between different generations of leaders that can help bridge the gap in understanding gender issues and foster a shared commitment to gender equality. I think I will stop here for now. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Ekanem. And indeed, that was really packed and informative. And I did like your concluding remarks on mentorship is not only about passing knowledge, but it's also about learning innovative ideas from young people. So it's not like we are being connected to only learn from adult mentors, but also for them to also learn from us and tap into our expertise and knowledge and all that. And thank you for also sharing how the importance of mentorship helping to bridge the gap between the other generation and this generation, but most importantly, to build an intergenerational movement of social justice leaders. And something we really did touch about that is also very powerful is mentorship can be a powerful tool. Of course, it is a very powerful tool to help young people navigate the gender justice space, breaking stereotypes, guiding leaders on understanding masculinities, emotional support, intersectionality awareness, leveraging on existing networks, and most important is guiding young leaders on forming concrete movements and strategic networks. That's indeed really, really powerful. Thank you so much for sharing all that, because we realize, and from what you've just said, that this will also help us to navigate and understand dynamics in terms of looking at how to navigate bureaucracies, looking at how to navigate organizational and structural challenges, looking at how to create supportive ecosystem. How do we foster a community that is supports young people, collaborating environment, and ensuring we have continued education whereby young people continuously learn from the adults, and the adults continue to learn from the young people. But most importantly, I did like the bit you mentioned about building expertise and delivering on the existing networks and partnerships. So how do we navigate the sector? How do we ensure that we have mentors offer valuable insight into gender equality sector, but at the same time, how do we as young people also offer valuable insight in the same space when it comes to policy landscape, when it comes to funding opportunities, when it comes to best practices, and also looking at including the key players in the field. And when I say key players, you also did mention how men are key players in this, and the importance of actually encouraging accountability when they having conversations with men. Thank you very much. It was really exciting hearing from you. And I hope we will have questions by the end of this session. I'm excited to welcome our next speaker, Christine Semwaro. Christine Semwaro is an intersectional feminist. She is the founder of managing director of the Breadfruit Collective, a gender and environmental justice organization that is based in Guyana. Christine has a master's degree in environmental policy and sustainability management. Over to you, Christine, whenever you're ready. How can we ensure that youth-led initiatives are sustainable and have a long-lasting impact on transforming masculinity and promoting gender equality? We talk about sustainability all the time. So how can we ensure that youth-led initiatives are actually indeed sustainable and they do have a long-lasting impact on transforming masculinity and promoting gender equality? So having this in a realistic perspective, and please do share your holistic perspective on how we can ensure the sustainability of these initiatives. Over to you, Christine, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much, Irene, and hello, colleagues. I hope you're all doing well, and it's Friday, so I hope you're taking time out to take the week in. I know we're observing this Youth Day this week, and I'm sure this event is on the shoulders of that event. But we know as young people that we celebrate Youth Day every day. But in the same light, I would also like for us to remember all the youths that are currently fighting for their rights and standing in solidarity with all the youths in places of conflict. And so as we think of sustainability and making our initiative last longer, this is something that I think about. Although I am still a youth, I tend to think of myself as a person that wants to create spaces for younger people than myself, because what I notice is a lot of time when young people get into the space, sometimes we forget that it's necessary for us to also create that long-lasting process for younger people to get in this space. Yes, it's important for us to be there, but it's also important for us to reach out and make sure that those spaces continue to live on longer after we do. And so when I think of sustainability, I always have to think of intersectionality of all the issues we face. When we are designing programs and initiatives, it's really important for us to look at the issues that we want to address, but understand that the issues that we're addressing is never one issue. It is important for us to always remember the society that we're dealing with, the countries, the communities, the territory that we're dealing with, and really look at it through an intersectional lens, understanding that we have issues of employment, of education, of access. These are all necessary when we're thinking of youth, when we're thinking of sustainability, and so on. mental health continues to be something that is always high on the list when you're talking to young people. But what we see in our society is we hardly have the resources to really deal with mental health challenges, or again, it's seen as a separate issue. But we should be embedding all of these best practices in our spaces, in our programs, and so on. It's important for us as people that are in spaces to make sure that we are creating spaces that allows persons to feel that, you know, they can also get to the level that we are at. And so empowerment and sharing space is so necessary. It's important for us to teach how to do things so that even after the program ends, we have community members and persons who are able to take ownership of these initiatives so that, you know, it's something that they also want. And what I find is when you're designing programs, it's really necessary to understand the needs of the community so that this is something that you are not telling them what to do, but it's something that's really they need it. It's something that they see the need in so that they can take ownership of it. And my background is in climate change. So and it's really necessary for us to talk about climate change impacts and understanding how urgent it is, because we see climate-induced disasters happening in all parts of the world, and no nation is really prevented or safe from climate disasters. And so it's necessary to understand that violence usually increases in these whenever we have disasters. And so climate change, sustainability, environmental protection, these are all issues that need to be realized and also be a part of the work that we're doing. Of course, when we talk about gender justice, transformative justice is necessary because we are often talking about a victim and a perpetrator. And so how do we as a society think about when harm is being done, how do we actually reconcile? And of course, my colleagues mentioned it earlier, and I do agree with them in terms of compensating for work being done. A lot of times there's so much acts of young people, but we have to remember the society that they're in, the capacity that they're taking up. And so it is good for young people to volunteer, but understanding that self-care is something that's really important. And so compensating for work being done is something that we should be doing. This is a principle we should be embedding in the work that we're doing. And lastly, I want to encourage inclusivity and remembering again that disability justice, engaging older people as much as we're talking about young people, it's necessary for us to always have that conversation between what was done before, how can we improve it, best practices. These are all things that help us to have a program that lasts, long after a project proposal might be. And I think in designing these programs and in helping us to really understand and make changes that last, we have to have a wellness and healing aspect to it so that to prevent burnout. I know as young people, we take on so much work, and because we more or less, we really want to make a difference, but understanding that the work that we're doing is really real. And most of the time also we're talking from our personal experiences to really understanding healing and wellness and how this play a role in our social justice work.
Thank you very much, Christine. Indeed, have a wellness and healing to prevent burnout. This is really, really important because most times we pour, and again, we forget that we cannot keep pouring from an empty cup, and we completely need to replenish and, you rejuvenate so that by the time we are coming, we're able to offer and serve our constituency while we are sober and in high spirits. So thank you very much for highlighting very critical, important points, looking at issues from an intersectional lens and transformative justice is really necessary, according to Christine. And then the aspect of investing in mental health, that's one she has reiterated more than 3 times when I was just listening to her talks. Looks like she's also very passionate about well-being, wellness, mental health, self-care, and all that. Inclusive practices, engagement in strategies to keep young people engaged, establish evaluation mechanism, compensate. It's also something that is coming out loudly in this conversation. Ethically engage young people, compensate for work done, social enterprise, provide a steady stream of revenue. Financial stability is something that is also really key when you're engaging with young people. Just to look at the chat box, Elida Maita says the conversation and the agenda should intentionally advance to promoting matriarchy, which is really women in leadership in all aspects of areas. A revolution of now is one of that should see the engineer of leadership of inclusion and particularly women in their diversity. Thank you very much, Elida. Abiba says, thank you, Christine, for articulating this youth compensation. And then Roberto says, any process that diverse real change should be understood as a teaching learning process. Both actors must exchange that position. Now I learn, then I teach, and then I learn again. Thank you very much for those beautiful comments. We are somehow somewhat behind time, but I believe we do have one last speaker. Just to confirm.
I think we're done.
We're done, right? Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, we are done. Thank you so much. So at this particular point, not sure if we can open it for questions and answers now briefly, like for 5 minutes, maybe. Anybody who has a question, I think everybody has a mic. We can take 5 minutes questions and then we jump into our breakout sessions where we will only have 5 minutes, unfortunately, to discuss and then come back to report back for another 5 minutes before we can conclude at the top of the hour. So let us grab these 5 minutes to throw questions to the panelists that are here. Christine is here, Pooja is here, Ekanem is here, Louis is here. The only person who is not here, they dropped out, is Sina. They had an engagement, but the other colleagues are here. So please, if you have a question, you may raise your hand or you may drop the question on the chat box. I will count 5 seconds. If no hand up, then we proceed to the breakout sessions.
Hi, Irene. There is Abiba Abdallah with her hand up.
Okay. Over to you, Abiba, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much, Irene. So my question is straightforward. My question revolves around how do we get, because if we youth are leading these wonderful initiatives, but then resources and then funding becomes a bit difficult because donors are not really making applications or calls really flexible for youth to have access to these resources. How do we engage them? How do we get them on board to understand us and know that, yes, we are championing our own issues, but they have to also meet us in the middle? How do we get to engage them on these at this level to make resources accessible for youth? Thank you.
Abiba, would you like to pinpoint who your question is going to?
Please, any of the panelists can answer.
Looks like Christine is ready for you. Christine, please shoot.
Thank you so much. I think it's because I have my camera on, but thank you for the question. And I think from my perspective and from the work that I do here in Guyana, what I find is it's important for you to really understand your context and your community. And we talk about this often. There's never enough resources. There's never enough for all of us to do the work that we want to do and to do it efficiently. And we continuously call for investment to be made into young people. What I would say is as we continue to fight for that, in the same light, it's important for us to get the work done. And what I have found in Guyana is meaningful partnerships with the groups that are in the country, but also in the region, even international, like being a part of something like this and learning about all the work that's being done globally. It's really important to build these partnerships and understand that we may have similar values, we may have similar missions. So sometimes it's easy to complete application or work together to address a specific cause. And donors, they usually find that when groups are participating, when they're collaborating, they're more or less likely to want to invest. Another thing that as young people, we're very good at sharing our work, like social media. And I find that it's actually a really good tool because donors, especially, they want to see how the resources are being spent and the work that's actually being done. So using it to your advantage and highlighting the work, highlighting the community, highlighting the people that you're serving, I think it goes a long way in showing people and showcasing the things that you're actually accomplishing. And of course, measuring the impact and sharing the impact, I think that goes a long way in terms of best practice, because the work that you may be doing, it's important for you to know that that exact work can be done in other countries, in other regions. It might tweak a little bit to fit the context, but a lot of times it's important for us to understand that this work, it's replicable, and it's important for us to know that because of the limited resources and limited time that we have, it's okay to learn from others, to ask for help. And I think donors are a great way to get resources, but it's also other means to do work in your community that may not cost money, for example. And so I definitely encourage you to explore those options.
Thank you very much, Christine, for that point. And again, the question being raised around funding and how to handle dollars, that's one of the conversations that also did come up during the EMEA SRHR symposium that we just came from. And how do we navigate the rigid monitoring evaluation frameworks? How do we navigate the toxic funding practices? How do we navigate the redirection of funding? How do we navigate the lack of domestic allocation, particularly to support youth-led work? How do we ensure that, how do we even have conversations with the donors for them to stop having very weird priorities? Let's just make decisions on these are the issues of the young people, but this is also the money that we want to support us. Let us come with let us share our problems, but also give us time to generate our solutions without really pushing us. The funding structures, which are very short-term, rigid monitoring and evaluation frameworks, and all this. So thank you very much for sharing. I don't have an answer per se to the person who sent the question, but thank you very much for sharing that. Mine is just adding questions on top of questions to the donors. So I wish we had a donor here, but unfortunately, thank you very much, Abiba, for your question. We have one question on the chat box. Unfortunately, this is going to be our last question. Louis, there is a question for you. If you can respond in 30 seconds, please. How did you navigate the challenges that you went through when you were starting such an initiative, and how did you overcome these challenges? Louis, 30 seconds, please. Over to you.
Sí, claro. Son dos cosas. Principalmente el crecer en un contexto comunitario. Realmente cuando sales a la ciudad es algo muy diferente. Entonces, ha sido muy difícil poder transitar ese cambio. Sin embargo, con el respaldo de otras personas se ha podido transitar. Y también otro de los problemas más recurrentes es el adultocentrismo. Y pese a toda la experiencia que aún quizás yo siento que tengo, aún no es suficiente para, por ejemplo, un director de la escuela o el director de una universidad, porque, bueno, me ven joven, entonces cuando voy a hacer como gestiones y otros acercamientos, como que dudan, todavía siguen dudando, ¿no? Pese a que quizás pues yo les muestro toda la experiencia o el trabajo que venimos haciendo, pero todavía sigue siendo un problema, principalmente el adultocentrismo.
Still an issue, this adult-centered ideology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Louis. Excited to have more questions? Anyone with a question, please feel free to shoot. You may come off mute, just shoot your question. Please don't be left out with an unanswered question. There is a hand, Lorena. I hope I pronounced your name right. Please shoot your question. Over to you.
Okay. Gracias. Buen día. Saludos desde México.
Thank you so much.
Preguntarles a
Regards
los
from
ponentes si
Mexico. I just wanted
conocen
to ask
alguna
the
metodología
panelists if you
participativa
know any
que justamente
participative
potencie el diálogo. Y
methodology
bueno,
in order
nosotras
to foster
no
dialogue.
somos donantes, pero en
We
esta
are not
experiencia de procurar fondos con
donors, but
donantes,
in our
el
experience in
tener
trying to gather
documentado el
funds with
trabajo
donors, maybe
y
having
basado
documented
en
work
herramientas
or
metodológicas, ¿no?
work
Que lo
based
hacemos, que
on
fomentan la
methodological
discusión para
tools
abrir
that
el diálogo entre hombres y
foster a
mujeres y entre
discussion to open
generaciones, personas
dialogues
adultas
between
y
men,
jóvenes,
women,
son
and adult
buenos
and
elementos que a
youth
nosotras en nuestra
generations. All of
experiencia
these
nos han
are
facilitado y
excellent
ayudado
elements
a
that
gestionar
have
recursos. No garantiza
helped
nada,
us
pero te
to
permite
manage
posicionar lo metodológico en otros
resources.
espacios justo desde las comunidades. Gracias.
And so we can work from a community perspective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lorena. Is there anyone who would like to react to Lorena's points? And then as we react, I would also like to pose a question to our panelists. I will start with you, Louis. So how can we follow up on the adult-centered ideology on how this hinders young people, especially in the gender equality space? How do you feel we can follow up, maybe action plans, maybe recommendations on what exactly we can do to ensure that adult-centered ideology on how and you just figure out how it hinders the entire presence of young people in gender equality spaces. Louis, whenever you're ready. And maybe you can also react to Lorena's point.
Claro, bueno.
Yes, of course.
Creo que mucho en lo que le hemos apostado aquí,
So I think a lot
desde la organización y en el colectivo
what we fostered from our organization and the collective as a whole is to involve
a los tutores y tutoras de
mentors
de las juventudes y adolescencias que trabajan con nosotros.
All of the youths that work with us.
En cierta medida es difícil.
So in some way, we know this is a challenge because sometimes we have situations where these people have different realities, they have other jobs, and so it's difficult to coordinate and schedule, but it's worked for us to involve them in the activities, in our reflection circles, in our workshops, and to then work on this at home with their teenage children in order to foster an intergenerational dialogue so as to reflect on the significance of listening to their teenage children. We go from training to action. So we work with boys and girls, and then we foster them to act. That's why this prior work with parents enables us to have their authorization so that their children can conduct activities in public spaces, in other schools, or have other collective meetings in order to plan their activities. So this has worked for us with parents. The truth is, without parents, we wouldn't be able to work with the youth. As regards the methodology, there's no particular methodology coming to mind now, but we've tried to document our processes. Documenting our processes is very useful, having all of this documentation to show as work evidence and as a resource. But it's something that we started doing just a year ago, so it's very recent. We're trying to record the processes now. We are in the action of doing so. So that's our challenge for this year.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Louis. And thank you for mentioning the aspect of fostering an intergenerational dialogue that's something we've been really mentioning also. It has come severally into the conversation. Christina, what's your thoughts? Please share your thoughts around how we can ensure that what the impact of intergenerational, or rather the perspective, the ideologies of adults when it comes to youth engagement, and how does this hinder the work that we do in social justice spaces, or gender equality space rather, the ideology of the adults in the space? How does it hinder your work as a young person in this space? Christina, over to you.
Thank you so much. And I think this is so important, and it's a topic that we continue to unpack, because especially in these spaces, especially in post-pandemic, we see a lot more organization having young people involved, and it's you want it to not be a trend, or you want this to be taken seriously and not to be.
Sorry, Shanice, will you please mute? Sorry, Christine.
It's okay. And not for young people to be, tokenized. And so it's a continuous conversation we need to have. Are we really intentionally being inclusive by including young people? And of course, young persons, we're not a monolith. There's so many different identities that we bring to the space. And I think it's so necessary for us to also realize, as young persons, we have perspectives that are very different. We really want to make a change. We're very passionate, innovative, creative, all these things, but and in the same light, understanding that the people that came before us, they can also be a partner, a strategic collaborator as well, because they've also been doing this work and they have their own perspective on how things have been done in the past, and ideas on how it can change as well. And I think bridging that connection is easier said than done, but I think it's necessary for us to do that. It's necessary for us to really be intentional and intergenerational, inclusive in the way we approach this work. And of course, it doesn't come easy. It takes a lot of trial and error. But I think for us to really be inclusive and for us to be intentional, this is the only way for us to proceed. And it's going to take a lot of intentional work to really unpack the issues that we're trying to address, because we know these issues of equality, of justice, it really can't be solved overnight.
Very important ending there. It cannot be solved. I mean, Rome was never built in a day. So we can also not dismantle patriarchy within a day, and we cannot solve the issues around gender injustices and inequalities within a day. Thank you very much, Christina, for that powerful ending. Most importantly is we avoid tokenizing youth engagement. Thank you very much. Excited to hear from you, Ekanem. What are your thoughts around the same? If you could just come off mute and share how adult-centered ideology can hinder young people, especially in gender equality spaces and social justice as well. Over to you, Ekanem. As we wait for Ekanem, maybe we can have Pooja. Do you want to come off mute and share? There is also another question from Roberto. How can we get more young people involved in awareness workshops? Many times formal institutions consider this is a waste of time, and therefore they do not see it as important either. Anyone who wants to respond to Roberto? How can we get more people involved in awareness workshops?
Yes.
Over to you, Louie.
Sí, esto es una cuestión que hemos hablado muchísimo,
So
porque
this
realmente
is
la
an
organización en la que
issue
trabajo
that we've
trabaja con juventudes, con
significantly
adolescencias y
addressed,
juventudes, y es
because
algo que nos ha
we
costado
work with
muchísimo.
youth, with
A
teens,
veces iniciamos
and
procesos
so
con
this has
30
been
jóvenes
very difficult.
y
Sometimes we have
terminan
processes with
12, 15
we begin with
o 10, ¿no?
30
Entonces, sí, aquí hay dos cosas
teenagers
muy
or 30
importantes que hay que
young
tener en
people,
cuenta.
and
Uno
we finish with
es
maybe
tratar
15.
de que
So
nosotros vayamos a
some
ellos,
significant
no que ellos
opportunities
vengan a
are: one,
nosotros.
we need to go to
Vamos a
them.
buscarles.
not them come to us. We need to go out and look for them through activities that wake up their interests. Something that we've noticed in recent months and that we are going to implement very soon is
unos talleres de fotografía o curso de
having
fotografía
some
básica.
photography
No es
workshops,
algo que
basic
trabajamos,
photography
pero a los
workshops.
jóvenes de nuestra comunidad, de mi comunidad,
Even
les
though it's not
interesa.
something specific to our
Entonces,
organization, the youth of my community is very much interested in this topic.
Pero al mismo tiempo
So they come to the photography workshop, but in that workshop, we also address gender issues, violence prevention. So it's sort of a twofold workshop because we include gender justice concepts in our different workshops. And sometimes we know that we can feel frustrated when we prepare sessions for 30 young people and only 10 people or 12 people turn up. Well, bear in mind that working with young people, this is how it works. They can be here this week and not be here next week. So don't get frustrated. Work with the young people that do show up at your workshop. Even though you prepare for 30, you work with the 10 young people that showed up because they showed up for a reason. So we can't just cancel a session because we didn't have the turnout expected. This is something that we need to adapt to. Young people are changing. They can be here today and not tomorrow. It's a matter of youth. So let's not get frustrated. Let's work with the young people that do show up, that are present and interested today.
Thank you very much. There was a question from Jose. I can't track it. Jose, if you're here, do you want to come off mute and maybe shoot your question? Jessica, do you have a question?
No, I don't have any.
Okay, please mute. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. So is there anyone also who would like, this is a cross-learning, so you can, the responses could come from the panelists or it could also come from the delegates. So if you're here and you would like to also respond to any of the questions, please just raise your hand and share your perspective. It's also great for us to hear what you think, how the session has been, what maybe you feel our panelists must have missed out. Please just come off mute. You can raise your hand and share. If you have a comment, a suggestion, a recommendation, an action item, please just feel free to share. Yes, there is. Louis, you have a question? Over to you.
Gracias, Irene. Sí, solamente decir que qué bueno que se hayan dado la oportunidad de participar en este espacio.
I just wanted to thank the opportunity for participating in this space. I see that we have a lot of Latin American presence today, so that makes me very happy as well. This is just the beginning of what we can say is a very long and enriching dialogue. Maybe we can open up new spaces where we can share reflections, exchange experiences. Maybe we could have another session. We're going to have another session. And of course, we'd like to have you join us in our next community session. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Louis. We really, really appreciate you. So our colleagues, due to time constraints, we're not able to break into the breakout sessions, but we are hoping that soon we will be able to have another session and be able to go into the breakout sessions and just deliberate around these issues. We really appreciate you. So as we draw our MenEngage Alliance, Global Alliance session to a close, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for your active participation connecting on the chat box, thoughtful contributions, and an unwavering commitment that you have to the cause gender equality. So today we've really engaged in meaningful discussions and explored innovative strategies to address some of these coming from lived experiences, as you've heard from our panelists, and just to address the challenges and opportunities in our shared missions. Your insights, your experiences from the panelists have enriched our understanding and have illuminated new pathways for us to pursue together. We have emphasized the critical importance of inclusivity and empowerment, recognizing that transforming masculinity and advancing gender justice requires active involvement of all voices, considering intersectionality, diversity, as most of our speakers have also said, especially those of young leaders who bring fresh perspectives and energy to our efforts. The commitment to shared power, fostering genuine collaboration, and supporting sustainable initiatives is paramount to our collective success. As we move forward, colleagues, let us carry with us the momentum and insights gained from today's collab session. Let us continue to build on the connections made, the ideas exchanged, and the strategies discussed. It is through our united efforts, respect for diversity and diverse perspective, and unwavering dedication that we will drive meaningful change. In closing, I encourage all of you to remain engaged, stay inspired, and continue to champion the cause of gender equality in your respective spheres. Together, we can create a world where every individual, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, can thrive and contribute to a more just and equitable society. Thank you once again for your presence, your passion, and your commitment. Let us move forward with resolve and optimism, knowing that our collective action can and will make a difference. Thank you so much. Until next time. Thank you.